Hi everybody and welcome to the video. Now today is a very exciting video for me because today I'm going to talk about how this guy is helping me get just a little bit further above average.
Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be.
Alright, so hi, welcome to the video. My name is Matt and this is What Matters to Matt. Now on this channel I try to share with you the things that I'm doing to be the best that I can be for the most important thing in my life, and that is my family. Okay guys, so Dad's marathon is a little bit further than going out to Grammy and Grammy's place. How long do you think it would take me to run my marathon?
3.5 hours.
What do you think, Dylan? Was that 4 hours? 4 hours? 4 hours? Maybe a little bit of a stretch, but maybe 3.5 silly. I'm never going to do that in 3.5 hours. And yes, the question that I just asked my kids in that last clip is exactly what I want to address today. See, if you've been following my channel, first of all, welcome back. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Now, if you do think, I know this is kind of early, but it helps me out so much. So if you do think you're going to like some of my content, head on over to my channel. Hit that subscribe button down below. Every new subscriber helps me out so much. It's very motivational to see that more and more people want to join me on my journey, just want to join me in that experience. So if you can, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification. It helps me out so much. Let's get back to talking about exactly why we are here. So yes, at the beginning of this video, I did ask my kids what they thought my marathon pace would be. Now I get 100% that they're not going to know exactly what a marathon is. They're a little bit young to get the relevance to that. So I tried to give them the idea of heading all the way out to Grammy and Grampy's house. And it is actually a marathon. It's just a touch further than that, but we didn't go into the details of that. But what they said, interestingly enough, were some very good marathon times, and I think the only reason why they were able to target those so close is that they had been watching videos on YouTube about marathons, and those numbers probably popped in their heads. I've been diving into so many YouTube videos on marathons and marathon pacing and all that fun stuff. So for my son saying 4 hours, a little bit of a stretch goal to be honest, for this is going to be my first ever marathon, and my daughter saying 3.5 hours. That's just, we got to be realistic on what I can expect from my first marathon. So that's a little bit of a long stretch. But the reason why I brought up this guy at the beginning of the video was actually because the way his philosophy, his way of thinking. First of all, if you haven't seen any of Mark Lewis's videos before, I'll link to a couple of them down in the description down below. I found him just a few months ago, probably just a couple of months ago. He's kind of, I wouldn't say blowing up on YouTube. Yes, kind of blowing up on YouTube, getting pretty popular pretty quick because he is extremely motivational and he's pretty funny and he puts together some really good content. Now, what is his motto, or what does he try to put forth in his videos? Well, he tries to give you the idea that being above average is good enough. You don't have to consider yourself to be the expert or the best at everything. Of course, anything that you put your mind to, and you'll see in his videos and you'll see in my videos, anything that you put your mind to, you want to put 100% effort in that. But being above average is good enough.
This is obviously the middle. You want to be here, above average, be better than most. It is the sweet spot, it is the fun spot.
And there's kind of one main reason why I think this idea or this way of setting the bar is absolutely genius that I want to get into. Now, Mark, if you happen to see this video, I doubt that you will, but if you do happen to see this video, please send me along a message or put a comment in the comment section down below. I'd be really curious if you think I'm completely off on what I'm about to say, or whether you think it makes a little bit of sense in how I'm going to apply that to my marathon and my pacing, because hopefully it does, because this is what I've settled on in terms of pacing for my first marathon.
Being an expert is just showing off anyway. Far more interesting is, can you take 500 days and become above average at something?
Now, the reason why I would consider this to be a genius way of thinking when it comes to setting the bar, being a little bit above average, is that, first of all, it aligns with the way that I think of myself and I think of how I set my goals. But also, if you watch Mark's videos back, if you pay attention to what he does, is that bar, that above average, gets to be set sort of wherever you want it. And what I mean by that is it gets to be set sort of wherever you see yourself relative to other people. When we're talking about marathons, that can be in a number of different ways. Are you comparing yourself to everybody in the world, or are you comparing yourself to people who are running their first marathon? Are you comparing yourself to more elite runners? How do you stack up against a certain group, and can you get above average in that group? And for me, that helps me kind of set the bar realistically, but shoot high on that bar, and from there just go on to figure out exactly what sort of pacing I do need to do in this marathon. Now, I know that friends of mine that are runners, and I also know people on social media in different running groups that I have, are probably sick and tired of hearing me ask this question because I've asked it so many times. But the question is, what should I run my first marathon at? And I sort of get four main answers when I ask that question pretty well anywhere. And the first answer is, frankly, just finish the marathon. Enjoy the process, finish the marathon, don't worry about your time, and then move on from there. Now, what I'm gonna say is that, yes, that is sort of a base goal on just finishing the marathon, but the problem with just saying just finish the marathon is I'm a numbers guy. I like to give it all the effort that I can, and I feel like I need to have a number inside my head before I go into that marathon so that I can pace myself appropriately, so at the end of the race, I feel like I've given it everything I could, and I couldn't have actually gone much faster or any faster. I want to leave it all out there. So just finishing the marathon is great, but I want to try to do just a little bit more than that. So it's great, and of course I want to enjoy it and be realistic, but I need to set some sort of a target. Okay, and the third answer that I get comes down to one of those race predictors that you're going to find online. Now, I think there is a lot of value in these, so I don't want to completely bash these, but I do want to explain why it's not really making me comfortable in terms of coming up with a time or a pace for my first marathon by using one of those race predictors. And it comes down to my situation. Now, a number of people, it's going to work great. They're great. You go online and it asks you to plug in, most of them, previous races. What were your times in your previous races? 5K, 10K, half marathon, that sort of thing. And then from there, it spits out a projected marathon pace. You know, allotting for things like it's a longer distance, so you're going to go a little bit slower. And many of them do seem like they're fairly accurate if you put in the appropriate numbers, where I feel like my situation is a little bit different than somebody who might be plugging them into one of those pace calculators, is that I've never run a race before. I jumped right into running a marathon. I was never really somebody who did any sort of running events before, so I don't have specific numbers to put in there. Now, I do have some faster paces that I've run so far in my training, but I don't feel like there's been any all-out half marathon paces, or maybe there's been close to a couple of all-out 10K, but I don't feel like I've gone as fast as I could in a race situation to make that sort of a viable way of predicting what my marathon pace is going to be. And the last one that I get is, why don't you just use your Garmin? I mean, I have been out there and I have talked about how much I love the Garmin, and one thing that Garmin I think does pretty well is predict race paces, but the reason why I have a little bit of a struggle using this as my race predictor is, it's kind of like what happened to me back when I was new in the gym just a couple of years ago, when I decided to lose a bunch of weight, get healthy, start lifting weights, is that my strength went up very quickly. I had newbie gains, and the same thing happened to me when I got into running over the past few months. My cardiovascular ability, my ability to run faster at lower heart rates has gone up pretty quickly. What happens? The race predictor on my Garmin moves around quite a bit. It feels like, it's not that far off, and it feels like it's probably the most viable answer for me given where I'm at, because it does take into account things like your VO2 max. It takes into account all your previous runs and your training, and it's using all that to come up with a number. But it seems to be adjusting quite frequently for me as I get further down the road of my training. So for now, if I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to run 2 months from now during my marathon, Garmin it doesn't seem like it's accurate to me. Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but for me, Garmin's not going to be the way I'm going to go. So all that being said, how do I get my information, and how does this guy help me with figuring out exactly how fast I'm going to run that marathon? Well, it comes down to that being above average, and I think that puts me in a few different categories in terms of what I consider to be the base, where I would be okay with finishing, where I expect to finish, and then where I have sort of my goal, where I think I might be able to finish, and then the stretch goal. If 8 weeks from now I'm feeling like I'm killing it,
I'm going to be realistic, but if I can, what is that fastest possible pace I think I could ever run that marathon at? So first of all, in that first goal, that base goal that I would be happy with if I finish, but frankly, I want to do a little bit better than this, but I look to that group that I can fit myself in, which says that I am a first-time marathon runner. Now, I get it, there are a number of different variables that might pull you in and out of that group in terms of experience doing other things, other runs, different things, but if we look to that group online, sort of the common figure or the common number that they come up with is 4 hours and 30 minutes. So my base goal is to go sub 4:30. Now the second goal that I can reach for, and I'll go to the ASICS website for this because I saw they had a really nice round figure that actually wasn't that far off the 4:30 figure, is that if I put myself in the category of everybody who runs a marathon, everybody who's ever run a marathon, not just the beginners, but add in everybody else, the goal becomes 4 hours and 21 minutes. So my goal that I would be incredibly happy with is going sub 4:21. And finally, we have that stretch goal, the same one that my son gave to me earlier on in the video. We have 4 hours. If I can go sub 4, maybe that's not super realistic. I'll be honest with you. When I first signed up for a marathon, before I actually did much running, I had played around with running, but not really did anything, kind of dove right into it. I underestimated just how much work and effort, and I say this openly and honestly because, again, I want to share my experience with you, but I underestimated just how much effort and how hard it is to run that fast for that long. I thought I was a pretty fit guy, but I was underestimating what it took to run a marathon in under 4 hours. So that would be the ultimate stretch goal. Perhaps that's a goal for my second marathon, but we'll see. You never know. I've still got 8 weeks. I've still got 2 months before that marathon. So that is the ultimate lowest goal. So sub 4:30, sub 4:21, and sub 4. I mean, who knows? And that is it in terms of where I think I'm going to pace myself for the marathon. You never know, things could change over the next few weeks. But once again, I just want to thank Mark, not just for helping me figure this whole thing out, but also just for how entertaining his YouTube videos are. As a YouTuber, I love watching other content. I will put links to some of his videos in the description down below. And the last thing I want to end with, now, if you do run a marathon, whether this is your first marathon, your 10th, 20th, whatever it is, if you run a marathon, you actually can put yourself in the very exclusive company of less than 1% of the human population. All right, everybody, my name is Matt, and this was What Matters to Matt, and ultimately, again, what matters to me most is my family. I will see you in the next one.